You are listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast with Maggie Green, episode number 339.
Welcome to the Cookbook Love Podcast, a podcast that celebrates cookbook readers, buyers, collectors, writers, and clubs. And now your host, cookbook author, culinary dietitian, and cookbook writing coach, Maggie Green.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. How's everybody doing today? I just returned from my weekly trip to the supermarket, and everything's good at the supermarket. I saw all my favorite people. I saw Kathy and Jesse, and there's a girl that I see there that checks out the groceries on another aisle, and talking to her the last time I was there, and her friend just had a baby. So I saw her baby picture of her friend's baby and all my friends at the supermarket. And the reason I want to record this podcast today is because my trip to the supermarket every week, going to Kroger where I shop, is part of my routine, part of what I love to do. And one of the things that I love about writing cookbooks. So that's why I wanted to share this topic with you today, because I've been thinking a lot about why I love to write cookbooks, and especially as I am embarking on a proposal for another traditionally published book. This has caused me to kind of dig deep a little bit, because this would be my 5th traditionally published book with a publisher that I love, about a topic that I love. But I've got to work on writing the proposal. So I wanted to share with you some of the things I love about writing cookbooks, and end with something that I hope you can maybe begin to see for yourself. So first of all, the first thing I love about writing cookbooks is it gives me a chance to think about a new topic. And it's not that the topic that I'm thinking about is something that I haven't done before, but it gives me a chance to think about a topic related to a way of cooking, a certain type of ingredient, a certain way of shopping that I love, and that fits perfectly in the life that I have, and I know will and does fit perfectly in the life that a lot of people who would use this book have. And what I mean by that is it just gives me a chance to think about this topic in depth, to take time, give myself the gift of time to think about this topic and how I can help people who love this same thing have a better life related to this topic. So that's really the first thing. And that's where any cookbook project starts, is gives you a chance to think about it. But thinking takes time, and we have to give ourselves time to think about things. And one of the things that I'm convinced of in our fast-paced life, where ChatGPT and short video and our attention span is so drawn down by these things sometimes, is that we don't really give ourselves space to think about things ourselves. So that's one thing I love about writing a cookbook, is it really forces me to think about this topic. Number 2, of course, then I love in relationship to that is how this topic is going to change what I cook in my own kitchen. And I love cooking different things, and I love writing new cookbooks because I'm going to be cooking some new things, and that sounds like a lot of fun. Number 3 then is I do some baking also. I have this kind of funny joke with one of my former clients that he's an exquisite baker, and he always laughed when I would talk about baking because I'm a great cook and he's an exquisite baker. And I would always say, it's time for me to start doing some baking. And we would just laugh about what happens when cooks step into the kitchen and they bake. I tend to be a little bit more of a maverick about baking, not maybe as exacting, but I'm looking forward to perhaps writing this cookbook as a way to express some new things also related to baking. Number 4, I love looking at my kitchen in a new way related to a new cookbook topic. How I store things, how I keep my kitchen clean or organized, how I interact with this new way of cooking in my kitchen, and do I have to set up any new systems or any new way of thinking about things, and how does it affect my kitchen? just in general, as the space in my house where I cook. I love that. Another thing about cookbook writing I love planning. I love looking at a long-term vision for a book that's going to come to life in a traditional way that's usually, I'd say, a 1.5 or 2-year time frame at least. This book is off in the future, so I love planning my life around something that's going to happen in the future. I think future focused is very fun. It shows possibility. It shows hope. It's a plan for something that's going to be created, and I really enjoy that about writing cookbooks. I think I'm on number 6. Number 6, what I love about writing cookbooks is I get to shop differently. Now, that sounds kind of odd since I just talked about going to the supermarket and how I love going to the supermarket, but this new cookbook is going to require me to think about shopping in a different way. And that's going to be good for me, and it's going to be good for the people that use this book, because I suspect that people who are going to benefit from this book maybe shop like I do now, but it's a new way of thinking about shopping. So I'm looking forward to diving into that. Another thing I love about cookbooks, I think this is number 7, is I love feeding people. I find great joy in getting people together and feeding them. And it could be planning a meal that's a catered meal. It could be planning a meal that I actually cook, having friends or family over and feeding them. I like the whole thing around that. And when I write cookbooks, I get to think about feeding people, not just the words that I'm writing and the ideas that I'm writing, but also I get to literally feed people with the results of the recipes that I'm going to test and develop. So I really love that about writing cookbooks. Sometimes there's extra food, and maybe can share it. Sometimes what I will do when I'm working on a cookbook, if I have a big cooking day, I'll enjoy a meal with people, and everything that we're eating is things that I'm testing or developing for the book. So feeding people and writing cookbooks goes together. Number 8 is I do love the cleanup part of our kitchen. Now, this is something that Warren shares with me. He's involved in the cleanup mostly of the dishes that we have from when we eat. But the next layer beyond that is just keeping our kitchen and countertops, clean, keeping things put away, knowing that, we have everything stored where it needs to be, keeping our pantry tidy, try to do all that. I love that aspect of it. And I think to be an effective cook and to be a baker, someone that has a routine and a regularity to their cooking and baking, I think that this cleaning, tidying part of cooking is something that we don't often talk as much about. I know that when I talk to other cookbook writers, they really try to be cognizant of how many dishes, pans, pots, dishes are being dirtied in the course of creating a recipe. So I think about that also when I'm writing a cookbook. It's kind of not realistic when you take that perspective out of recipe writing. I think we need to be thinking about the people who are using our recipes, making sure that, what we're creating is practical and easy on them, also from a cleaning and keeping their kitchen tidy perspective. Number 9 is I do love recipes. I love the part of recipes that's really just a formula. I love the part of recipes that's really just a process. I love the part of recipes that's steeped in culture and traditions of families and of people. And of course, this takes me back to the very, very beginning of my interaction with cookbooks, was always just fascinated with reading the recipes. And I love knowing that I'm going to be sharing recipes that other people either contribute or sharing original creations of my own, where I write my own experience of interaction with ingredients from my kitchen. So I love the fact that I'm going to get to dive into some new recipes. I'm going to get to decide how many recipes are going to be in this book and the way this book is going to be organized around the recipes. I also love stories. Stories generally involve people, and I'm confident that with this book I'm going to write, I'm going to be telling stories about people and telling stories about things that happen with people related to the topic that I'm going to write about. So I do like the storytelling aspect that we see in a lot of cookbooks also. And headnotes are often a place where stories show up. Sometimes they show up in maybe more of an essay form, but I love the story part of cookbooks. I'm sitting here at my desk looking at The Kitchen Diaries by Nigel Slater. It's A Year in the Kitchen with Nigel. This book was written in the early 2000s, but he walks through like a diary of his year in his kitchen. And, invariably when I'm reading this, or if I dive into it, like if I sat down now and read something about March, he'd be talking about someone he met at the butcher shop, or a person that he met when he was shopping for cheese, or maybe someone that he bought an ingredient from at the farmer's market. And you see that's always related to people. So I'm really looking forward to storytelling from the perspective of who I'm going to meet all along the way. Number 11, I think I'm on 11. I love cookbook indexes. And I was just having this conversation with my students yesterday inside Cookbooks on KDP, talking about the creation of an index for a cookbook. And an index is something that's very important. I think it really, if it's done well, can be a place where someone can really see the full depth and breadth of what is in a cookbook. I've maybe told this story before, but when I worked with Ethan Becker for The Joy of Cooking, he always said, I think his mother might have said this, or maybe he thought of it, that if the meaning of life was in a cookbook, people would never be able to find it unless it was in the index, which meant that I think maybe I got part of this thought process from him, is that how much the index really can tell about a book. So sometimes when I get a new cookbook, or I get one maybe of a person that wants to come on the show, or I buy a new cookbook of my own, I'll turn to the index to kind of really get a feel for what is in the cookbook. So I look forward to interacting with the index of my new book. Then on the flip side of that, the table of contents is very fun too. And this is something for a cookbook proposal that you have to provide a pretty in-depth or annotated table of contents. So I look forward to creating that. It's kind of like the structure or blueprint for the book, whereas the index is more about the content of the book. So I really love reading table of contents from cookbooks. And as many cookbooks as I've seen, you can really see some neat things done with table of contents that take it out of just the standard like menu-driven table of contents to a table of contents that really connects with the content of the book. So I love that as well. Number 13, I love tips from other cooks when I read cookbooks. So I look forward to not just providing recipes, providing stories, an index, and a table of contents, but what are the tips that I'm going to give people from my lived experience of this new topic? Because in writing a cookbook or writing a proposal, living what you're going to be writing about is essential. I can't continue to do everything in my kitchen exactly the same as I'm doing it now and write a cookbook about something different. It's not possible to do that. I think I need to live what I'm going to be writing about, and I can't wait to see what tips come up from this new way of cooking that I'm going to talk about. So I love the tips. I love reading other people's tips, and I love creating them. Number 14, I love the challenge of living the new book. So this ties to that tip suggestion, but the possibility that's going to open up in my life because I'm going to be living a new book. So I look forward to that. I also love the people that I'm going to meet while I'm writing the book. I also love the people I'm going to meet when I am creating the content for this book. I know there's going to be new people I'm going to meet on the publishing team. Can't wait for that. And I love the people that I'm going to meet when I'm actually out selling and promoting the book. You know, that's really, to me, the best part about being a cookbook writer is I get to go to all these amazing places and do all these amazing things and meet amazing new people who also love cookbooks. And just connecting with people is truly the icing on the cake for cookbook writing. So this takes me down to number 17. I also look forward to the places where cookbook writing is going to take me. New places to shop, new places to eat, perhaps, new places to visit, new places to experience, all because of writing a cookbook. The next thing that I love about cookbook writing, and this is, as we're wrapping things up here, this is number 18. I truly love the business that I have been able to build around cookbooks. I cannot even begin to tell you what it means to me to know that I have spent the majority of my career and professional life doing cookbook related things. Everything from the cooking, the writing, editing, testing, developing, creating my own cookbooks, working with people who write cookbooks, working with cookbook writers, publishing, traditional publishing, self-publishing. I have had amazing opportunities and I've met amazing people, all the way from all of the beautiful people I've met who, many I still interact with, who wrote family cookbooks for their family. They never intended to sell books. They just wanted to document their family memories, all the way to the amazing experiences I had working with Ethan Becker in The Joy of Cooking, and then meeting his son, John, and Megan, John's wife, and just this tradition of The Joy of Cooking. I mean, I've really had some amazing experiences. So the business that I've built around this is truly incredible. Very grateful for that. Number 19, I really believe that writing cookbooks has ultimately, and cookbooks themselves have unlocked the person that I was called to be. All the time. Like, it was just like this writing of books has unlocked the Maggie Green that is sitting here talking to you now. And everything related to cookbook writing has truly helped me to become the person that I'm supposed to be. I 100% believe that. And number 20 is, I went out last night with Warren to eat dinner. We went to a place to eat dinner that was kind of a fundraiser, but what happened is, if you went to eat at this place, 50% of our check was given to the local Catholic charities here in our town. So, you sometimes see people that there. We had a really nice meal. We got to enjoy talking to each other and sharing this meal. And then 50% of what we spent was going to go to Catholic charities. But we're kind of finishing up, and this lady came over and sat down, and she said, "You're the cookbook lady, aren't you?" And so that's number 20. Writing cookbooks has given me the ability to enter into my community in a way that wouldn't have been possible if I wasn't a cookbook writer. People know that I know my way around a kitchen. They know that I create delicious meals. They know I love to feed people. They see me at the supermarket. They see me planning my meals. They see me feeding people. They see me writing books. They buy my books. We talk about my books. I can share my gifts with, like, an organization like Catholic Charities or other places where I contribute cooking for people, shopping for people, the things I do behind the scenes. But as the cookbook lady, which is what this woman that I met referred to me as, it's just really given me an identity as someone who has a life based in cookbooks. And I think that at the end of the day, if you can relate to any of this, and if you are nodding your head or you are saying, "I totally get that," maybe it's because you've written a cookbook of your own and you understand what I'm talking about. Maybe it's because you have a desire to write a cookbook. And if all of the things that I've talked about resonate with you, it's possible that you writing a cookbook for your family or to sell to a larger group of people is going to unlock also the person that you are called to be. And what I'm trying to say to you over the airwaves is that there are different things that we all do in life that unlock the person we are called to be. I believe for me, it's cookbooks and all the things that go along with that. For you, that might be the same. And if that is the case, I want you to know that I see you, I agree with you, and I will be here for you to help you through this podcast and through the programs, workshops, and classes that I offer to be the example of someone who lets writing cookbooks be the thing in my life that helps me to be the person I've called to be. Now, there's a lot of other things I've done in my life that I believe have unlocked the person that I am meant to be. Being married to Warren, for sure. Being a mother, no doubt about that. Being a cookbook writer, being a business owner, a podcaster, a teacher, a coach, a friend. All of these things that are part of my identity have helped me all to develop into being the person I'm called to be. But writing cookbooks and being a cookbook writer and having an identity as a cookbook writer is no small part of this. And I just love how it's always been connected to things that I can do that I really enjoy that make other people's lives better in the end. Cooking, baking, shopping, feeding people, having a home that's open and welcoming where I can have people here, we can eat together, sharing meals, talking about food, improving people's nutrition status, if that's what it is, sharing stories, sharing recipes. I just don't think that there's any better genre of book to write to allow me or to allow you to become the person that you're supposed to be. So if you are interested in talking about cookbooks, learning a method or a process for writing cookbooks, I invite you to remember that I offer 2 different programs to help you. Number 1 is Cookbooks on KDP. Cookbooks on KDP is where I teach people how to publish their recipes and stories in a book on Amazon, get it printed on Amazon. You can do a family cookbook that way or a cookbook that you want to sell. And then I also have my signature program called Get Paid to Get Published. It is where I teach my 4-part methodology for you to have a framework to follow to learn how to get paid to write cookbooks so you don't have to spend your own money to publish them. And then you have a framework that you can use over and over and over again. And that's the framework that I actually developed after I wrote my first cookbook. And I realized what it is that I needed to do to become a traditionally published cookbook writer. And I'm going to be leaning on that framework again as I move into writing my proposal. And I would like you to know that we are starting a new 90-day live Get Paid to Get Published Accelerator. It'll begin on Wednesday, March the 12th. So if you are interested in writing a cookbook of your own and you want to explore traditional publishing, head on over to www.cookbookwritersacademy.com/getpaid, and you can watch a free workshop that I taught. You can listen to me talk about the traditional publishing process. I lay out the 4 pillars of my Get Paid to Get Published method and invite you to join me inside Get Paid to Get Published and the 90-day accelerator, which starts next Wednesday, and you become the cookbook writer that you are called to be. So that is it for today's episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. This is your host, Maggie Green, and until next time, have a great day and keep loving your cookbooks.
Thanks for listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast. You can find out more information at www.cookbooklove.co.